How you guys doing?
Howdy.
It was quiet there. I wondered if you guys could hear me there for a second.
Oh
It's
yeah.
glitching on my end here. Is it
Is it?
same for you guys, or is me? Maybe it's just me.
Not
I'm
not really.
I'm
I
good
don't I
here.
don't I don't think so, not yet anyway. Well, welcome back everybody to another episode of the Stream Team Beekeeping Chat. I'm Bruce. Oops, that's Greg. And that's Brian.
Thumbs up though. You gave him a thumbs
Yeah.
down. He's a thumbs up kind of guy.
It's
See.
hard to be able to figure out which direction to point. But anyway, and I know we're doing different things now, but I think everybody's pretty much busy in the bees right now. I think it's officially here. So tonight's goal is to talk about it. So let's talk about it, guys. I'd like to welcome everybody in tonight to the chat. We already have 71 folks on here. We just got started. And a lot of names I recognize. I'm just kind of watching them scroll up. No way we can recognize them all, but we appreciate everyone being here tonight. Got some old names. We've got some names that maybe I don't recognize. Maybe some folks that have been away a while, maybe coming back. Trying to get my equipment all set up here. I got started a little bit late getting ready here, but anyway, it is on like crazy here in Southeast Alabama, and I think you guys are busy up there as well. I've been watching your videos, you guys, and you guys have been sending me pictures of the things you're doing up there, and I think everybody, probably most everybody in the continental United States right now, for sure, is at least in bee season, whether it's as far advanced as we are here or just getting started. But I think most people are doing something with their bees now. Maybe a few exceptions, but I think most people are getting into those hives and watching those girls grow into hopefully some really nice colonies this year. So let's start off going around the horn like we always do. Greg, what's going on with up in your neck of the woods at Nature's Image Farm?
Well, it's wild up here. It's great to be back on. I know it's been a hard part of the year because it seems like we spend the just all the time running up and down the coast, delivering package bees and doing all those things. So glad to be in the podcast chair tonight, here with you guys, with our stream team folks. Here at the farm, we're just wrapping up. We just wrapped up our third public package delivery part of our season, and we have spent a lot more time than that running up and down the coast, delivering package bees. So it's been a wild season so far. We ended up doing record numbers again with our packages. It looks like we will with nukes, and God's good, and our business just keeps growing. So it's been wild here, just kind of facilitating the package bees and the pickups and all those things. And then you mix that in with some truckloads of equipment going out the door. It's been a lot. I feel like I'm mentally starting to, I think last time that we were on, it was sort of like I felt like my brain was like squished in a cider press, and now it's slowly starting to kind of come back into its fullness. Just in time for the beekeeping season, just to get really thick, to get really heavy. I sent you guys a photo yesterday. I don't know if Brian has a way to put, maybe Brian, if you can show that one. We've been busy lately setting some bees out. Last night we set out some colonies out in some areas where we've got locusts that are in bloom. So we're trying to get some colonies out on the locust. This year, the locust is in bloom. Thank God it's in bloom, and we'll see what the bees do with it. And then I just noticed this evening I was just kind of getting tired, and I just went out for a walk out to the ridge and back down again. And it looks like the blackberries are flirting with doing the same. So we'll see what that means. We have some cool weather coming up. We'll see what that does to those blooms, but right now we're kind of shifting some of our immediate focus from the package bees and deliveries and pickups and all those things over towards getting our bees kind of lined out and into the yards there. And starting this week, and then next week, we're cutting out all of our overwintered nukes, getting those ready for folks, and then we'll be moving into our spring nukes. So there's just a small yard there, but you can see those are all locust trees right behind there, and it's hard to kind of see, but that four-way palette on the far left, just above that, you can see a little cluster of white blooms in the locust trees. And then the pallet on the far right, just above that, you can also see some locust blooms there too. And then you can see the moon. The moon is out. So seems like we've been spending a lot of time watching the moon come up and watching the sun go down, and then watching the sun come back up again. But that's the joys of moving bees, especially at nighttime. But anyways, that's kind of what we're up to here on the bee front, getting things out, getting them kind of just built up, and then next steps from here, we get our overwintered nukes pulled out of the colonies and onto our customers, and then we'll start making our spring splits and spring nukes, getting those ready too. It's the next month is going to be a lot of fun. So nothing but good things here, and a lot of hope.
I'm feeling some good vibes from you, Greg. I know it's been extremely taxing and tiring for you. You got a lot of other things going on as well, just trying to stay on top of everything. But it's good to see you. You look refreshed, look like you've got a little rest, and you got a little more oomph behind your voice tonight. And so it's good to have you back in the seat there, back in the chair, feeling like yourself again.
It could just be this clean shirt from
Hillbilly Hippie.
Hillbilly Hippie Honeybees came out to pick up some package bees, spent a little bit of time with them. They shot a video. They posted that on their YouTube channel, Hillbilly Hippie Honeybees. So go check it out. You can kind of see what their experience was like picking up honeybee or picking up package bees here. But also, we love bees, but we love the Lord even more, and we got to kind of share in that fellowship. And so that was a fun video to watch. So go check them out, Hillbilly Hippie Honeybees.
It's a great video. Brian, what about up in Northeast Ohio? What's going on, man?
I'll show you what I did the other day. Let's see here. And I could have fit more. Could have fit more.
Look at that.
I could have fit.
How many is that?
There was
2 million. 2 million. 2 million.
It was 2 million honeybees. They all landed on me. They touched me.
They said you were the best. Brian went home with some packages and also some early nukes there.
Yeah. Yep. So did that the other day.
How many did you have, Brian? Were those all for you?
No, it was for the club.
Okay. I'm about to say, you sure you're not trying to be a closet hashtag 30, be Brian 30 or Brian 40?
I don't know.
With all those packages, I'm thinking, man, you're building on up to about 40 hives there, Brian.
I think he was thinking everyone was going to back out. Brian was our package runner on all the pickups here. He had loads of bees going back to his club, which also kind of saved them the trip. And I think he just likes traveling with it. I think honestly, he was like, "Is this what it's like to travel with bees this close?" Right. I think he's gonna. We're almost there. We almost have a convert, Bruce. If we just keep going, we might convert him over.
I tell you what though. So I did that the other day, and I was happy that the number of people bought packages as what they did. I mean, the guy that bought the 15 packages, Greg, he was going to order 40. And he said, I knew they wouldn't fit in your car. So he said, I just cut back to 15 this time. And I said, next time, let me know, because I could have easily fit another probably 15 in there.
We'll just send you home with my truck or a trailer, whatever it takes.
There you go. But no, it was fun. I mean, I was able to set up, that deal so that the members of the club, they would order it. And then I basically brought them up and they met me at the building where we meet up for our monthly meetings. So that was good. I went, let's see here. So days before that, then I had started the demarré process on the colonies. And I think I found my new method of what every year I have to do this. I have to do it. I went and Greg, you give your talk on like basically the easy way to raise queens.
Right.
So I go and I went yesterday just because our weather was, like today it's 47. I think we're going to dip down to 39 degrees. So it's cold, wet. So I thought, well, it's 73. Let me go over and it'll be like a 6.5 day post, split. and I could check the top boxes for cells. Look at that.
Look at that.
There
It's
you
like a
go.
little ATM machine right there, Brian.
I mean, and so a couple people, they asked me, they said, are you going to utilize those cells? And yes, but not right now. I have that Defender hive, that Apame Defender hive set up, that 21st Bees, I got from Michael. As soon as those frames are drawn out, I plan on my next round when I do the demery, because I will probably end up doing that demery 2 or 3 times. My next round, I plan on pulling frames like that out, and I can leave like 2 cells on a frame. That way they're not really fighting and competing. And I'll just look for the ones that look the best to me, and I'm going to start dropping them in that Defender hive so that I can start pumping out some queens. I just, with the Demeray, it made it literally so easy. I moved those frames up there. They took the best of what they had and they fed them. They did all that work. I did nothing, and I had all these cells. I had to have crushed 30 cells. I was just like, and there were other ones that were just starting, but of nice, juicy cells like that, it probably was close to 30 across the hives that I did the demeray to. So easy way that I can start pumping out queens, at least for my operation here. But things are good over there. I've got the yard. I uh, checked the packages. They're doing exceptionally well. I installed them on the 2 frames of drawn comb. Those jokers, and then I put infinity frames next to them, so they had 2 drawn and then 8 infinity frames in there. Those jokers have like 6 frames that they're utilizing now. That's that fast. I mean, when you throw packages on drawn comb, it's as soon as the queen's out, she's rocking and rolling. But everything over there, I'll tell you, it looks good. The queen that I had brought from you, that I figured, well, there's an older queen that's kind of teetering, and I'm just going to replace her. I thought, I wonder if it's just something with the colony. So in my Defender, I had a 5-frame side, then I had a divider and 4 frames. And I thought, let me just pull some brood over. And so I pulled 2 frames of brood over, and I just put that queen in a clip, left her in a clip for a day, and threw her in there. And I thought, I'll see if she performs. If she performs in the right environment, then I'll keep her. I could always get cells and stuff off her if she performs well. If not, I'll just squish her. But like you guys say a lot of times, and like Bruce, you say, you'll throw things in and you'll let the bees kind of sort it out and arrange it. Literally in 2 days, when I went to check then, because I installed things on Sunday, I went yesterday, and it was like that queen was already out. The queen that I installed in the other colony, she was out, doing good. The other queen, they were going in and out of the clip, feeding her. I released her. I mean, like, you get into that certain like period of the year where everything is just kind of hunky dory kosher, and queens, you just throw something at them, and they're like, okay, look at that, we got a queen, mama. So the yard now over there, and I still have a colony that I have to split. I was going to pull 1 or 2 splits off of it, but I've got 15 colonies over there right now, and I probably will have 2 more after I do splits. And I've got the swarm trap out here that I'm hoping to catch a swarm in, so I probably will end up at 17 or 18 here. So,
That's
and
great.
it's looking good. I mean, everything is looking really good. Um, I was able to I've got a colony that I think Satan touched this colony, because it's pretty darn feisty. I was able to, out of the colonies that are there, I kind of had an idea of which one was just, the devil child, and I figured out which one it was. So when I went yesterday and did my Demarest checks, I checked that one last, and the colonies, they were all very nice temperament. I get to that one, and Greg, if you ever come up and I still have that one there, that's a you're going to wear gloves on that one because it is very hot. I mean, in the video that I have coming out on Friday, I cover like the initial steps of the Demarest. Like I discuss more or less the principle of it and really explain like what to do when I show doing that, and then the post check. In that very first day when I busted up into that brood nest, I probably had 75 or 100 bees, like with their backsides around my neck and veil, stinging at me. So quite fun. But yeah, I mean the art over there, I'm content, very happy with how it is right now. So I cannot complain.
That's awesome, man. Down here in Alabama, we're going to harvest in about 9 days. So
Unbelievable.
we've had a really good year. It started off great, but then about the last month, it hasn't rained really hardly at all. But we're getting a little bit of rain. It looks like this evening or the next 2 or 3 days, we're going to be getting a little bit of rain, which should set us up good for our next flow coming in. The tallow, the privet, I think we're on the tail end of it. I'm not sure if there's really anything blooming between now and it, but the tallow looks like it's a little bit ahead. So I'm almost out of honey, and so it'll be good that we're going to be bringing in a little bit of honey. And I went out yesterday and peeked in on the colonies just in Slocum. I haven't been down there in a couple of weeks, and about 2.5 weeks. And some of them have 4 boxes on them. Brian, can you throw that picture up there of that Slocum bee yard with all the boxes stacked up? This was actually from about 2.5, 3 weeks ago when I stacked them up. But this is what that bee yard looks like. I'm not sure if you can scroll in at all, but they're stacked up pretty good. What I found was that the ones that have one super above the double deep or whatever, that one super is pretty much full. And I didn't go really in it. I was just out there in my scrubs last night after work. I didn't really have. All I had was my bee jacket, my hive tool, and my scrubs. I didn't have a smoker or anything in my truck, so I cracked the lids and peeked in, and almost all of them have bees working the top box. But in those boxes of 4 supers, they're not really putting a lot of honey in there yet. So I'm hoping to get at least 1, maybe 2 boxes off of most of these. There's about 30 colonies out there, I think. And so I've got 6 yards, and so last year we ended up with like 35 or 40 buckets, I think, in the spring harvest, which was probably what the equivalent of like 70 or 80 boxes. I imagine I'm hoping to be about that level, maybe a little bit more this year, and it's going to be kind of crazy. But we're getting Rusty's getting his stuff ready together too, so we're going to have that. We're going to do it all together that one day. Probably looking at between us maybe 150 boxes total is what we're hoping. We don't want to have a day where we're trying to do 300 boxes in one day. We want it to kind of be a reasonable day, and but it's exciting. I was really kind of shocked. I went just peeked in on the hives in Midland City Friday last week, whatever day it was, and they are absolutely packed all the way to the top. Now, some of those hives we split twice. Those are the ones Greg, you're familiar with that bee yard. Some of them I've split twice, and they've got I think that's one of the frames from that bee yard there. So look at that. That's a beautiful frame of honey. And I don't know if that's the top. Maybe there are 2 supers on that hive, the top box. I think there are probably 2 supers on that hive. And that's the top box of the 2. Or maybe the box sitting next to it might be the top super I took off itself to such. That might be the second box from the top. But you see the one next to it is pretty packed out too. So it's pretty fun stuff, man. This is a time of the year when there's nothing. It's just so beautiful to me to look in a hive and just pull out a frame and see that, a capped frame of honey that's just perfectly capped. It's just so incredible. But
look how white the cappings are too.
I know it's just that was probably that may have been a new frame, one of those black Purico frames that I have some left over, and when they draw that out, it's like a contrast. The black frame with the white cappings is pretty cool. I'm not sure if it's a new frame or not, but whatever it is, they've drawn it out beautifully. And one point, you kind of look at that picture right there. Look at that box and the box next to it. A lot of those frames obviously are pretty old. And when I store them over the winter, they get kind of almost like dirty looking. They come out looking a little bit gray or dirty. And then Some of them have wax moth damage in them. I didn't have it. I guess I didn't have the boxes sealed really good this year, and the crystals kind of wore off. And so, but the thing is, I got the frames that were really damaged badly out. Some of them were partially damaged. I put them in there, and those bees clean it up perfectly. They clean it up so beautifully, and they cap them just like this. So, a lot of folks get worried about their frames, or like they're dirty, or they just don't look really good. The bees, they literally, you go back in there, and once the bees start working it and they just clean out. They chew off any wax that's not clean or nice, and they build new wax on it, and they just do that to it. So it's pretty cool how they can do that. And
Yeah.
there are a few frames sometimes where they'll build it out wonky, or where they just kind of, for some reason, it seems like if there's old pollen in there happens to be pollen in them, they don't like to really rebuild over that. But most of the places where there's been wax, they usually build it out pretty cool. The bees are just amazing. They're amazing little critters. Brian, what else did I send you? I sent you a couple more pictures. We could throw those up. Now this right here,
Look at that.
guess what kind of boxes those are? Any ideas, Brian?
Wow.
You know what kind of boxes those are?
That's purty.
That is at Yellowhammer Preserve. That's a friend of mine, a place they've actually hired me to keep hives there. This is one of the locations. There's just 4 hives at this spot. And they ordered all Propolis and DuraHive wax tipped equipment. And these started off, I think about 6 weeks ago. I put them in a single deep, just a nuke, dropped it in there. It may have been 7 weeks ago now, and fed them. I fed them with bucket feeders. Went out there, checked them. A few days later, they were growing. Went out again and fed them one more time. I fed them after 2 weeks. I fed them with another bucket feeder. They packed out the second box. Was out there about 2.5 weeks ago, and I took off the bucket feeder, added the second deep, and put a frame feeder in there, a 1.5 gallon, I think, frame feeder in there from Mother Lode. And I came back out. I pulled 2 frames up to the top on most of them, and just replaced the frames in the bottom that I'd taken up. And I thought, there's no way. I'm like, I know there's a good flow going on, but these are brand new hives, all new frames except for the nuke I put in there. I'm like, they haven't drawn these things out. I went out this past Friday, which was 2 weeks after I'd been out there previously. And I went out there with my feeding truck, my feeding trailer, my tote with a syrup on it. I'm like, I'm gonna have to feed them because they need to finish drawing out that box. And it's about 45 minutes from my house, from the farm where I go up there, 45 minutes this location right here is about 35 minutes, but the other location, which Brian, you go ahead and pop that one up now. This is the other location. There's 12 more out actually that we preserve, Yellowhammer Preserve.
My, look
And
at that.
those so I pulled the daggum lids off, and some of those bees were packed out. I started going through them, swarm cells. I actually witnessed at this location right here, Yellowhammer. There's pine trees all around, and I pulled up, and there was a swarm happening. A great big huge swarm flew up about 30 or probably about 40 feet up inside of a pine tree. And so I'm like, holy cow. So obviously I brought the wrong equipment. I brought the feeder trailer, and I didn't need to feed them. What I needed to do is bring new boxes to stack on.
Super.
So I drove back. I pulled my dang feeder trailer back to the farm, loaded up with 16. There's 16 hives total, loaded up with 16 supers with frames, and took them back up there. Now you see some of the ones are not as tall. They weren't as strong. For some reason, they're a little bit weaker. I think some of the colonies have swarmed because I think there are queens in them, but they're just not as populated as they were. It's just, I don't know what to do because they're growing so fast. I just am completely amazed at how fast they've grown. But I told them when I put them out there, I thought this year we probably may not get any honey this year, but we'll see how they do move it up into those honey supers. Those ones that have two honey supers on them. Those hives are incredibly strong. Amazing what these bees are doing this year down here. And that place out there is completely I think it's like 1,000 acres in there. Nobody else is on that land. So these bees have free reign of everything in the area. It's right. This location right here is basically right on the Chattahoochee River. We're just a few hundred yards from the Chattahoochee River. Over there, it's just right on the eastern side of the state of Alabama there, and beautiful location. So aren't those boxes beautiful though? I'm a big advocate of these boxes. I love the Endura Hive wax tip boxes, and you add that copper tone to them, and they are just absolutely beautiful boxes. And so
they look so good with those trees in the background. I mean, those are just beautiful.
From the other angle, working back the other way, they have a big kind of a lodge out there, house lodge thing, and there's just nothing but pines between I don't know if you can see the house through there, but there's like a pine forest right between there. It's just a beautiful spot. It's a really beautiful location. But anyway, so that's kind of what's going on. So I went out there Friday. I meant to go out there, spend about half the day. I got up, went up there early. I thought I would be done, get home, and be able to get in the rest of my bees. And my main goal this past weekend was to place queen excluders in my production colonies. Well, obviously, this took me with 2 trips. It took me most of the day, so I only got queen excluders on my Midland City bees, and the rest of them are they're just probably packing. They're packing honey in. But I'm sure in that first picture I showed you there, those colonies, I peeked in on them yesterday. I just drove down there and just cracked the lid and peeked in, and they're putting honey in them. But I'm sure there's probably a little bit of brood up in some of those supers. So I think what we're going to do is just pull the honey we can here next weekend. And if there's brood up in there, we're going to make sure while we're pulling it, we get the boxes off that have the honey in it. And we'll probably just slap a queen excluder down then and then put the supers back on. And the ones that we don't pull. And then when we pull the honey, I bring the comb back out there and put it back on there for them to fill up with the tallow honey that should be coming in here in the next few weeks. We are a little bit ahead on the tallow this year. They're starting to send those little shoots out, the little blooms. And I think we're early, which I don't necessarily like that because I would rather I'd rather have a little bit of a break. I'd rather them kind of let us go ahead and harvest the spring honey, and then about a week later, which is what they typically do, start the tallow flow. But I think they're going to be a little bit early this year. So I'm hoping we have a good honey crop. I need one. Brian, I did send one more picture to you of what else I've been working on this week. This is the I don't know how well you can see that, but that is my new setup. I had the speed fill. I got it at the BX with the Hilco speed fill machine, the XL. And I've been having a hard time with it. I had a 16-gallon Maxent tank, which was sitting right there where the speed fill is in this picture. The tank was sitting there, and the speed fill was just over to the right of there. The problem is you really need it to be pulling uphill. The gravity from when it was full, it would just kind of it was kind of a drip a little bit because of the gravity pushing it. You had to clamp it off. If you left it sitting there and you weren't running the machine, it would just drip because if you didn't close the gate.
Yeah.
But we got a little cart from Websterant. It's a perfect cart. It's 2x2. I got the 25-gallon Maxent tank from Greg. He delivered it down here back in February. Finally got it set up, and I got everything working. And I just bottled up about 60 bottles on it when I got home from work this evening, and it is beautiful. It works great. Wow. And I do need to adjust the settings a little bit because I had the settings adjusted to try and keep it from dripping. And so now that it's pulling uphill, I might need to increase the speed flow. And I don't know, I need to have someone kind of walk me through what the settings need to be now because I tried to change it. So maybe it can pull a little faster. It bottles quickly, but I just put a short out a little while ago and people are like, well, what is it set on? What are the adjustments? And so I think it maybe needing some adjustments on the settings, but man, I think it's going to work much better. And the fact that it can hold 25 gallons is a game changer because man, just having to fill that 16-gallon tank up over and over and over again got to be kind of a pain. But we had it totally full, and we just bottled up about maybe 50, 45, 50 2-pound bottles, and it's just it's still got like quite a bit left. Like it seems like at least 2/3, 3/4 left, if not more. It's just going to be a game changer. But Greg, I appreciate you making that happen for me, and I paid for it. You brought it with the load, and we finally got it out of the box and got it set up, and I think I'll use that thing.
It looks like a nice height to be able to pour buckets into.
It's perfect.
Getting high, getting high up on a ladder or standing on something to,
it's
perfect. Or needing another pump just to send it to
that little cart is probably maybe a foot tall. I'm not even sure if it's a foot tall, but it's just a really heavy duty, a little, I guess stainless steel, whatever it is, cart. And it's pretty heavy duty. And then I got a board, a little 1/2-inch piece of plywood, and put over it. That's what they kind of sitting on that little piece of plywood there. Painted it, painted it really a nice thick coating of tough paint on there. So we'll see how it goes. It worked beautifully here this evening. So I'm looking forward to using it. But anyway, that's what we've been doing. Been super busy. I have orders. It's amazing. Like I'll start to worry thinking, man, am I ever going to get rid of my honey? And then I'll have like someone will order I had somebody just order, let's see, 60 plus 48 plus 12, 120, 130 bottles or more that I've got to get bottled up for one of my locations. And then another store ordered wants 24 bottles. Somebody else wants 2 dozen. So it's just like people just it's just like when you start to worry about it, all of a sudden I get these orders, and I'm sure Upland Farms will be wanting another order of 200 or 300 bottles here pretty soon. And that's why I need that tank, is because when you're doing the 16-gallon tank, you have to fill that thing up 2 or 3 times. And when it's crystallized this time of the year from last year's honey, it's like, man, you got to decrystallize it, put it in there, wait. And with the speed fill, honestly, it seems to work better if the honey is not hot. If it's not well, I never get it too hot, but if it's the cooler, the better. If it's like around 100 degrees or 110 degrees, it seems to have bubbles in it. Maybe it's a little more difficult to pull the honey through, but if it's down around that 75, 80 degree mark, it seems to pull it through more smoothly, and there's less bubbles in the bottles. And so it works really well, but you gotta let it cool down. You can use it warm, but it doesn't seem to work quite as well. So anyway, this is a learning curve for me, and I've got Mike Berry on speed dial, and some other folks on speed dial that I can ask about it if I have any questions. Mike uses the same machine, and Brian uses I think another version of that machine as well.
I've got an older one. Yeah.
But, I do like it. I kept telling you, man, I can do it just as fast using my honey on tap, and I might could go almost as fast, but it's just this is so much more convenient to do a lot of bottles in a hurry. And it's as long as I don't have it on the auto setting and not realize it, and set a bottle on there and it takes off on me and starts filling, as long as I make sure it's on manual until I get everything set up. But yeah, I learned that the hard way. And ask me, they say if you mess up once, shame on you. If you mess up twice, then you know what I mean? It's just like,
what do they say?
I've messed up over. I've done it. So many times I'll leave it on auto when I'm done, and I set the bottle on there and it starts filling. I'm like, well, crap. But that tray is a game saver. The tray catches it.
Yeah.
And so then I can just go wash the tray off, and it's not a problem.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we've got a lot. We got a lot going on down here. But the reason I wanted the topic of this video tonight is basically, let's talk about the season. I mean, it's different. You guys have described a different situation up there than what we have down here, but it's just a different time of the season. You guys are where I was probably a month or two ago. But you got this big wave coming, and we still have the wave. We're still in the wave, but we're a little bit further along, towards the shore than you guys are. So I think let's just talk about it. If there are any questions or comments people have about what's going on in your area, if you could put it in all caps, that helps us be able to see you. Also, super chat, super stickers, they kind of pop up and we can see them easier that way. It's more likely to see them there. Not that we're asking for money, but it does definitely help out what we're trying to do here. If you could pop one of those in there, but we would appreciate it. Not that it's required, we just appreciate it. So, but anyway, so I guess the other thing I did, I almost forgot. Tyler Walker down here. One night we need to get him on the stream team. One night, maybe in a part of the season where he's not working like 18 hours a day or whatever it is. But he's a local guy. He's a commercial guy. And I mention him on my videos sometimes, but I bought some cells from him and made some splits, 30 splits back probably about a month ago, 5 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago now. They're doing really good. And then I found out that he actually bought a breeder queen from Zach Heinzelman in Hawaii, one of his really nice breeder queens that Zach had a few for sale this year. And he also got a Latshaw queen, breeder queen. And he and his he's got a couple of H2A workers. I think they're from Nicaragua, maybe one of those countries down there. I think it's Nicaragua. But they actually have become really good at grafting. And so he's basically making his own graft cells now. And so, I mean, I can try to graft myself and make my own queen cells, or I can just go pay $6 a piece for his, and I know they're done well. And so I went and I couldn't help it. I went and I made 20 more. I bought 10 of each of those queen cells, broke those splits out a couple of weeks ago. And if it's not raining all weekend, I'm going to check on them and see how they're doing this weekend. But so here's my problem, Greg. When you make a lot of splits, what happens? I mean,
you need a lot of equipment, and you
what
need
happens
an
when
guy.
you have those bees and nukes, and then they get mated, and then they start laying brood up, and then you got 2 or 3 frames of brood in there, and that brood emerges, and then all of a sudden you got 5-6 frames of bees in 5-frame box.
Well, you either need to sell the box, or you sell some of the boxes so you can buy bigger boxes to put some of the other ones in. But then that means you got to grow. That means more yards.
I mean, I think I got a place to put them, but I am literally I have utilized basically all the equipment you brought me, including the
Wow,
the
that's great.
boxes, all at 70. I've got probably 5 or 6 boxes left of the ones you brought me.
Mhm.
So and a few frames are left. So I'm kind of in a little bit of a mess. I might have to pull out some of the old boxes that I retired and slap them back on pallets until I can get some more from you. But
In
I did.
January, to lure me down to Alabama in January is, I mean, extremely easy. To lure me down to Alabama in
In
July
May.
or August,
Yeah.
for you, Bruce, I would do it, but,
Well, well, we're probably going to need them before then, so we'll figure something out. But I'm at that point to where it's just so much fun. I just absolutely love it, and I may sell a few of these nukes, but honestly, here we're almost getting past the point where I think there's going to be a high demand for nukes. This April is kind of the month. You know what I mean? It's like after that, we're well into our honey flow. We're already past basically almost past the spring flow right now.
yeah.
And so if people really want to grow their bees, and they could be growing for next year, but to grow them this year to try and really grow into nice big colonies and have a honey crop, it's going to be a little tough. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I actually have taken some of those nukes, and I've done the old, I think Randy Oliver talks about this. I've just had some hives that were weak or I thought were queenless. And I've got these nukes just like resource hives. I'll just take the second deep off if it was a double deep, take 5 frames out of there, drop that nuke right in the middle. Leave the bees that were in there, drop that nuke right in the middle, slap the second box on, and then just walk away. And what I found is they seem to do just fine. They seem to figure it out and do really well. And so it's pretty cool. But anyway, I've talked enough.
Don't you love that feeling though
Alright.
when you get a yard or a thing squared away and you have that everything's moving forward feeling? Like I think that's the thing that I love the most is when whether it's putting bucket feeders on everything or getting that extra box on everything, or you go through and everything's queen right or has a queen or a cell or everything is moving forward. Like when you pull out of that yard or you walk out of the backyard or whatever that it is, that feeling where everything is just moving forward. Like I love that feeling has never gotten old.
Yeah, what I love, and most people in here, if you have bees, you can probably you understand this pretty good. Is I love it like when I'm in a bee yard, it's kind of in the evening time, that sun's starting to go down.
Mm.
You're kind of finished up at the time of the year, like right now, when the bees are pretty happy, they're bringing in honey. You smell that smell that you smell in a bee yard when the honey's coming in, when the bees are all happy. You just walk in there. There's a sweet, really good smell that you can smell. I don't know if it's the honey or if it's pheromones or a combination, whatever it is. It's just beautiful. And you look up, it's just kind of getting a little sappier, but you see the sunset kind of going behind the trees. There's like a little breeze blowing. I just love that, man. I just love it. You hear the buzz. It's just such a peaceful feeling.
Oh, yeah.
And you can sit back and you can just watch them for a while, walk around. And I just don't want to leave sometimes. I just want to hang out there and just stay around. Like you talk about, Greg, walking up and down the ridge, at certain times of the day. It's just, there's something about it
Mhm.
that you just can't get. Like I work in the hospital, don't have that feeling in the hospital. You can't get it just walking downtown, but there's something
Mhm.
about being out in the country, just you and the bees, especially in a bee yard that's kind of hidden that not a lot of people, it's just you and them. And I just really like that. Just nothing quite like it. It's a very satisfying feeling. And even when you leave a bee yard, like you say, any time of the day that you've accomplished some things and the bees are doing really good, it's just a real satisfying feeling. And I'm
Mhm.
addicted to it. That's why I keep doing this crazy stuff I'm doing. I just can't stop. I really do. I just really enjoy it. And
Mhm.
I do feel like it's a calling. I really do. A lot of people don't have that feeling that I have. It's more than just a hobby to me. It's more than just be. It's just I feel like kind of is a calling for me, and I just really do enjoy it. I wouldn't be as crazy as I am if I didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've kind of dominated the conversation for a few minutes here.
Alright.
So, I guess you guys have kind of talked about where you're at with everything. So, where are you at? Is it still like you guys are like right in the middle of, or just really beginning kind of serious swarm season up there? Is that what's kind of going on up there, or what's the status? I mean, we're still in it, but we're probably starting to taper here a little bit. For the next couple of weeks, we'll probably have a few, and then of course you can always have swarms, but it'll slow way down starting about now, maybe the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Up here, so starting in the northern end of Ohio, we were just starting into our swarms. I started to see like the first postings from people in like the Northeast Ohio beekeepers where swarms were hitting in my area. And it wasn't like really into the season where there's like multiple a day. It was just scattered here and there. I just started to see it. We are probably not going to see any swarms now for another week or so, just because, real quick to look at the temps in the next few days. So, tomorrow we have a high of 53, low of 38. Friday we have high of 49, low of 36. Saturday, high of 50, low of 34. And then Sunday, 59, low of 48. And then starting into next week, it's going to warm into the 60s, but we are not going to hit 70 even. Oh my gosh. We're not projected to even hit 70 up here again until May 13th, 2 weeks. So we're going to be mid to low 60s up until that point. So our swarms where they were just kind of starting, there's nothing going to be happening now. So,
Brian, are you saying that you typically will see swarm activity on, let's say, an abnormally warm day following a string of cold days?
huh, is that how that works? Always happens that way.
Isn't that wild?
Yep.
It's when you look
bees
at the
know.
forecast, it's cold. It's like ours is the same here. It's like 50s, 60s, and 70s for 2 weeks,
Uh-huh. Yep.
which is interesting because it seems like the swarm, you get that 80 or 90-degree day out of nowhere, and it's like all the bees are in the trees, but we
They're
haven't really
ripping
had
it.
that here. But and we'll talk about it here in a minute, I'm sure, but honey flows seem to also kinda hinge on those really hot, booming kinda days. So I wonder how
I
this
know.
Indian no one says we have an Indian fall. It's usually Indian summer, but we got an Indian fall or a fake fall here, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's real weird. I mean, I hope that uh these next few cold nights do not, hurt anything. Where my colonies are at, I don't think it will affect anything, but I just talked to earlier this evening, I talked to Peggy Garnes, and she said before she had looked at weather and all that type of stuff, it's all nice. And she said literally tomorrow and the next day, she should have cells that are emerging out. And she said
Mm,
they're not gonna go on mating flights. So she said she was looking at it that her virgins probably are not going to go out on mating flights for probably a week, just between rain and cold weather. So those that I think up here were quick to jump that gun and
mm.
start drafting and start pumping out queens, it's just we're not quite there, you know.
Same thing here, and actually the same thing for a lot of parts of Ohio. Any
Mhm.
early queens, or queens that you're gonna be
Oh,
sourcing from Ohio, the weather was been way too iffy on the mating flights
yeah,
to have a good, solid, long-laying queen. Um,
yeah,
we've been for a lot of reasons, not pulling the trigger, but we've got to, at least start the grafting process and get everything ready. So when we get all these
mhm,
overwintered nukes pulled, we've got cells to put back into everything, cells to put back into our spring splits for those nukes too. And so we're kind of running. We've got to do that soon. But I am sure glad that I don't have a bunch of little mating nukes out there right now with queen cells when we've got 34-degree temperatures. That is not going
yeah,
to work. That's a major
yeah,
problem. That's an ask me how I know kind of thing.
yep. Yeah, so up here, at least, Bruce, uh we're gonna be in a holding pattern right now until Sunday when we start to warm a little bit, but then after that, it's gonna be a gradual. So I think For where my yard is at, I don't think I'll lose any bees to the trees just yet.
Yeah.
So, but when we do in 2 weeks' time, when we do start to break the 70s again, if you are not on top of your colonies up here, I mean, those jokers are going to be pumping out swarms left and right. So you just are going to have to stay on top of it. And I think if everything kind of, this cold weather is going to slow everything. And once it starts warming up again, everything's just going to bust loose. And if you're not ahead of it, you're going to be chasing your tail, and it's no fun. It's never
Yeah.
fun having to run in 5, 6, 7 different directions when you're trying to keep up to the bees.
Let me
So,
that's kind of a good way to maybe segue into a little topic that came to my mind right here regarding swarms. Obviously, ideally, if you can keep your bees in the hives and they don't swarm, theoretically, you'll make a lot more honey. However, bees are going to be bees, and super strong bees will, they may swarm sometimes. It just happens. If you're in them all the time, if you're able to really watch and keep ahead of them, you might be able to avoid it. But in my situation, like I went up to Yellowhammer and there was a great big huge swarm. I sent you a video, Brian. Can you pull that up real quick? It's like a 20-second video. But I just pulled up and it was this great big swarm. One of the bigger ones around here. Most of the swarms I see, I have seen a few pretty big ones, but most of them are like the size of a volleyball. To be honest, they're not great big huge swarms, but they will explode when you put them in a box. They can grow extremely fast. It's amazing what they can do. That darn swarm was probably, it's a weird shape, but it had to have been a basketball size or bigger. It was a monster swarm. Here's the video of it right here. It'll pull in it. So you can see how tall those trees are. They're probably 40 feet tall. And I hope you can see that. But it's can you see it there on the branch? Yeah, right
oh
there
yeah,
in the middle, in the very middle.
right there.
There's that swarm. That thing was big. And so I mean it wasn't huge, but it was probably basketball size or a little bigger. So and it was like so high up in that tree. But I guess my question is, what would you do to address that? If you walk up to a bee yard where you got 12 hives, like I saw there, as I was going through the colonies, obviously that one had swarm cells in it, the one I saw them coming out of. But there were 3 or 4 others that had some swarm cells in them. I think a couple of them had already swarmed, and a couple of them had not because there were still eggs in the hive. I think I even saw the queen on 1 or 2 of them. What do you do? How do you address that? I don't want to make splits. I don't want to make splits. I don't really have a use for the cells. Those I want, if I'm a person that just wants 12 colonies, I don't want more colonies. I don't want to make splits, and I don't want them to swarm where they've already swarmed. There's 8 swarm cells in the colony. What would you guys do in that situation? I kind of let's get you guys' feedback on that, what you might tell them, some of your mentoring, and then kind of tell you what I do. And I don't think my method is what a lot of people do, and it's maybe not the best, but it's just what I do. So Greg, in your situation, you have a mentee that has X number of colonies. They don't want more colonies. They have bees that have either just swarmed or are about to swarm. What do you tell them to do?
Well, let's take it from, let's talk about, let's say we're walking into the yard that we just saw the video of, where the swarm is already up in the tree and you've got 12 colonies of bees and you don't want any more than 12 colonies of bees. I think the most important thing to do is actually critical to do. If you don't do this, it's just going to be bad. The best thing to do at that point in time is to just pull up a chair, sit down, and just enjoy watching the swarm do what they do. Because at that point, they're squared away. The colony they left from, if it was, now we've got to be careful, because we get into these bad habits of assuming that if we walk into our bee yard and we see a swarm, the first thing that we do as beekeepers is say, "Ah, my bees swarmed." But let me tell you something, that there is something very special about bee yards. There's something special about different lays of land and different energy fields and all kind of things that we can't hardly even begin to understand, but these bees pick up on. There are certain trees that I have seen swarms hit every single year, and they were not my bees from that yard. I've gone through and checked and looked and found the queen, and it was marked, and there was no queen cells, and I was on top of everything. That's definitely not to say there are not colonies that get by me, but in this scenario, if you're walking into a yard, you want 12 colonies and you see a swarm, you just pull up a chair, watch it, enjoy seeing what God instilled in these little beings and what they do. From there, though, I think the conversation quickly goes a different way because let's say you still have room to grow, or you're what do you do? I think what you the most responsible thing to do at that point is quickly start cracking the boxes and just peeling them back and looking underneath and start to see if you start to see a lot of activity underneath, a lot of if you start to see any queen cells there too. If you're in doubles, split the doubles and look between. If you don't see any drones like just absolutely slam between the two boxes, and you don't see any queen cells on the bottom of the frames, and you don't see two boxes boiling over, probably have not much to worry about. There was a time where I would go through every colony, every box, every frame, but I realized that I can eliminate most of that work and still be able to within an 80 to 90% range know what's going on inside the colony just by cracking the lid and splitting the boxes and looking underneath and getting a feel for what's going on or digging right into the center and looking. But what I would do is if you do see that and you don't want and you're if you have 1 out of 12, if that was your swarm, you need to go through and double check and make sure that there's not anything else getting ready to swarm. And you might say, but Greg, in my beginning beekeeping class and in my Swarm Beekeepers for Dummies book, it says that when a colony has made up their mind to swarm, that there's nothing you're going to do to turn that around. And my answer to you is that is 100% false. Fake news. I can't tell you how many times. Let me say this. When a colony decides to make queen cells, they are not headstrong to 100% swarm no matter what you do. What I'm also telling you is when you get in a colony and if you are actively seeing it swarm and you're seeing everyone just bivouac out, they're all just peeling out of this thing and they're coming up to the front of the box and they start taking off. You can even stop the swarm right then and there in their tracks. And you're saying, what are you talking about? They're already decided where they're going. And I'm telling you, if you stop the queen from leaving, they aren't going anywhere. And I've done this many times. I've gone in and seen this pre-swarm activity. I've gone in, I have found the queen, I have put her into a cage, and then I've gone through and split the tar of that entire colony. As a matter of fact, Brian was here, and Jason Crook from Bohemia Bees were out here in one of the yards as one was swarming. That I think that queen got out though. They ended up going up into an aspen tree, but there was I don't know 5 or 6 or 7 virgins all starting to emerge. And so I went in there and just snagged every single one of them and put them into a queen cage, gave them to Jason to take home as virgins. But there's been many times where I've actually stopped it in its tracks, found the queen in the colony. But what I do in those cases, I'll go ahead and just make some splits, give them some room, make sure that no matter what, I've got a backup plan. So if I've got one colony that's doing it, split them out 3 or 4 times. No matter what, you're going to get one colony. You're going to have some backup queens and maybe a nuke or 2 that you're building up on the side. So don't buy into the nonsense that once a colony of bees makes queen cells and they're capped, that you cannot turn that ship around. That is 100% false. And as a matter of fact, one of the talks that I give, Queen Rearing the Easy Way, we actually talk a little bit about that and how to use that and leverage what the bees do and do it better than you. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you think that you are God's gift to queen rearing. There is nothing that you are going to do a better job making queens than what those bees will do by themselves without you. I guarantee it 100%. Those queens will make better queens than you. I don't care who you are. That's just a fact. So there are ways that we can actually leverage and use the bees to even make those queens. And that's one thing that I talk about. One of my dirty little secrets when it comes to queen breeding every single year, I do this one thing. And that's one thing that I always talk about. And those talks that I give, Queen Rearing the Easy Way. Matter of fact, coming up this Monday, the 4th, at the Sandusky River Valley Bee Club here in Ohio, we'll be speaking on that. So if you want to learn more, check out that talk. you can come see me at the Sandusky River Valley Bee Club. We'll kind of get into the weeds on that. Bruce, that's what I would do when it comes to swarms. That's what I would do.
Brian, what are your thoughts, Brian?
So I'll back up, and I've spoken before about being proactive and not reactive. And there's 3 key words there, and Glade hit the nail right on the head.
Let's show his comment.
I saw Glade's comment. So
So
Glade, he just hit that nail right on the head. When you are managing your space, you're going to prevent that. So, because those are pretty much new colonies now. In your
That's what Glade say. Just read that for the folks
he
that may
says
not be
actually
watching.
swarming starts when they start backfilling the brood nest. Keep the brood nest open with room for the queen to lay, and they are less likely to take off. When you end up, and this is why I will never be like Bruce, and this is why I will never be like Greg, is I only have 1 yard that I have to manage.
Get to.
So, right, there's only 1 yard that I have to drive to. Okay.
Get to.
I don't have to drive to a location with a feed tote to find out that, well, darn it, these colonies are X number of like weeks ahead of where I thought they should be at this time frame. So, and then I don't have to drive back, grab boxes, anything like that. It's that managing of space is so critical. And that's the one thing that I tell people when, they're starting out. And this year, like one of the things that I told a couple of the people in the club, because they were new with bees, they were like, when can I put my honey super on right now? And I tell them, no. You want to look in there, and when you see those bees have drawn out about 75%, with the 10 framers, I think pretty much everybody was using 10 framers. I told them, when you have 8 frames that are being used, throw on another box, but I just tell the people your first year, you're not going to, don't even think about honey here your first year. So just get that out of their head right away, just because I want those colonies to build up. But staying ahead of your colonies, if you don't have the time to go out and check on a colony and you end up into whatever type of a nectar flow and there's nectar coming in, those colonies, it's like me, if I go out and I find some good steaks, am I going to say, nope, I don't want that steak? I'm not going to leave it there. I'm going to bring it home and I'm going to pack it into whatever location I can. In those bees' case, where they start backfilling the brood nest, if that queen then is looking at her available resources or her available spacing, and she says, well, I a week ago I had this much space. Now this week I have this much space and I'm really ramping up. We need to get out of here. And that's where you'll run into those situations. So the bee space it's just so critical. For me, I tend to, trust me, I've had swarms. I've actually walked out into my yard and seen colonies swarming. So it's happened to me as well. Like what I do, it's not foolproof. I lose bees to the trees all the time. But I just, with my yard going over, it's staying ahead of them, being that proactive person, and you're going to stay ahead of them.
Yeah, that's ideal. Excuse me.
It's the idea, and that's the ideal scenario, but not everything is ideal. You may end up
for sure.
real life interferes, you get busy, and then you go back and check, and then boom, you have colonies that you have cells, you have a colony that, I walked out and actively saw one swarming and it went up into a tree. I think you've been to my mom's once, so you know how tall the trees are. It went about 40 feet up. And, she's like, well, get it. And I'm like, there is no way I'm getting a huge monster swarm that's 40 feet in the air. you
Yeah.
know, and you just watch them fly away. And in those cases, there, you know what I did in the big part of my mom's yard, Greg? I stood there just watching it, like, you jokers, you're going to get away this time, you know. And there was no way anybody that swarm there that time. There's anybody or no way that anybody could have got it. They went up into the location, and within 5 to 10 minutes, they had already shifted and were going to their permanent home.
They had it
So
mapped out. Yeah.
exactly. And like Greg said, in that situation, it was like I stood there and I watched it, and you hear that hum, you
Mm,
hear that roar of it,
mm.
and you know, they were kind of up there, and then you could hear it in the air. You hear that the sounds, when I started to hear it ramp up again, I thought, those jokers are leaving already.
Yeah, I got up there and I saw them coming out of the hive. Like I pulled up my truck and I'm like, "What's going on?" And they were coming. They were running out of the hive. They were flying all around my truck, and I got my hive tool and my smoker out and was trying to tang them. They didn't care. They just went on. Now sometimes
They're
I've
gone.
tanged them and they
Oh, yeah.
land almost immediately,
Oh,
but
yeah.
they were already well in. They were already up too high. So even if they would have landed on something right then, they were still up too high. But so here's what I'm a little bit maybe controversial on this. I think I agree with everything that's been said. The issue I have, and many new beekeepers will have the same issue, is that first of all, just trying to put myself in the shoes of a new beekeeper, and I kind of am in a sense up there because I don't really want to. I want to just keep that to 12 hives up there. I don't want to
Mhm.
split. I don't want to really. I don't want to do that. So what I do is, and I've got another bee yard that's kind of similar. It's another guy that I keep hives. He pays me, kind of hired me to keep bees on his property. But if I see something like that happen, or if I start to go in these colonies and I see swarm cells, I was a little disappointed because these are very young queens. I mean, they're brand new queens, but they were
Yeah.
just so packed out, I guess, so fast that they just. And some of them aren't super packed out. But the other problem we have is, I know a lot of people say just put some drawn comb in there, give them space. What if you don't have drawn comb? What if it's all just foundation that you have, which is the situation I'm in up there. What I
Yep.
had was they've drawn out the bottom box completely. They've drawn out the second box pretty much completely. There's brood in the bottom box, there's brood in the top box in that perfect dome shape. Some of them that they, like you said, are starting to backfill the honey a little bit because they're starting to bring that in. But I would so say, for example, probably on four of those colonies, I opened them up, and there were several queen cells in there, swarm cells. They were obviously swarm cells. They were near the bottom of the frame, and they were nice, big, juicy, beautiful cells. And I just didn't expect that. I wasn't planning on that. Didn't want to do anything with it. So what I do, first of all, I don't get too bent out of shape. I'm kind of like Greg. If I see him swarming, I just sit back and watch him. I mean, what can I
Mhm.
do?
Yeah.
And you can look at it with a real negative attitude, like, what did I do wrong? I'm a failure. I'm a horrible beekeeper. I didn't stop the swarms. I didn't prevent the swarms. Or you can look at it as, especially if the queen's older. Now, these are pretty young queens, but you can say, well, that is the hive doing what they do. And the older queen is leaving, and they're going to have a brand new young queen in there that's going to just take over. And what I do in that situation is I go in and I will destroy, if I see a bunch of swarm cells and I don't want to do anything with them, if I don't want to make splits or don't have the resources or the equipment to make splits in right then, I will break down all the queen cells except one and maybe usually two. I like to leave two because I like to be able to pick whichever one they think is better. And then I'll just kind of close up the box and leave them alone. And I found over the years when I do that, that they usually figure it out, and they don't tend to swarm out as bad if you do that. If you just leave all those cells in there, and they may do multiple secondary or cast swarms after that, and they
Mhm.
may swarm out to where you have just a little tiny cluster of bees where you start off with a great big huge colony. They may swarm out 4 or 5 times, and before you know it, you don't have any bees left. But what I found over the years, I think in my colonies, I know my bees swarm some. I just can't get in them often enough to really stay on top of that with the number I have in
Mhm.
my full time job, because I know that, because many times I try to mark them, especially when I get these new queens. I try to mark them for the year's color. Most of my queens are marked early in the year. There are a few that probably get through and don't get marked, but you go through in colonies that there was a queen in there that was marked whatever year it was, and now there's a queen that's not marked. They swarmed or superseded her. But in that sense, they've replaced their queen and they're doing fine. you can sacrifice some honey, but if it's a super big, strong colony, if they got a ton of brood in there, which these colonies do in just a few days, they're going to replace those bees they lost. And so I have found that I tend to have a pretty good productive beekeeping operation, even if they do swarm on me. But
Mhm.
I do like to just break them down. If I'm not, I mean, ideally, I would use those cells. I mean, because they are, like Greg said, those are the best cells you can have. When the bees choose the cells, because they know these are going to be quality cells for specifically for that purpose of swarming, then you know they're going to be probably really nice cells. But I just didn't need them. I didn't have a use for them. It's kind of hard to break them down, but that's what I do. And so we'll see how they do. That's what I did. The other issue is, like I say, if you don't have the drawn comb to put in there to give that queen a place to lay, they still have to draw it out. That's the thing. I am in essence with those colonies up there. I'm basically like a brand new beekeeper starting over, putting a nuke in a hive body, growing it out to fill up a deep, putting the second box on, growing it out, all on new foundation minus the nuke I put in there. And so
Mhm.
it's kind of like cool for me in a way because I'm going back and in essence almost starting over. In my normal operation, I usually have a lot of drawn comb. I have a lot of established bees, and so it's not
Mhm.
quite like that. But up there, brand new boxes, brand new frames, brand new bees, everything like I'm starting fresh. It's been kind of a cool experiment to see how it works. So I
Mhm.
guess my point is, if you can split, if you want to split, that's great. If you're able to stay on top of them, especially if you have a drawn comb, that's great. But don't beat yourself up if your bees swarm. Don't beat yourself up. One approach you can take is to just make sure there's only a cell or two left. Nice cell to that. Be sure not to damage that cell, and then let the bees do their thing. I'll also say, and I don't know if you guys do the same thing or not, but if I'm going through a colony and I see a couple of queen cells in there, but just only a couple, they look like super procedure cells or kind of in weird places on the frame. I usually just don't do anything. Like I don't freak out about it. I don't. I just say feel like, hey, these bees know what's best. Maybe they're in the process of replacing that queen for whatever reason, and typically they figure it out. They do the right thing.
Mhm.
If I break that cell out, I might mess something up. Those bees are, that may just create another. If they're going to supersede the queen, there's a reason for that. Even though it looks like she might be perfect, so that's kind of what I do. I just kind of leave it alone. But if it's obviously a swarming situation with a ton of swarm cells in there, I usually will break them all down except for a couple and one or two, and just let them rock and roll and see what happens. 95% of the time, I would say they figure it out and they fix it, and
I'm
they
gonna
they
try this year, and if if things go the way that I'm hoping they're going to go, uh, and knock on wood, not I'm seriously going to jinx myself here. Oh, look, the pup's thinking I'm knocking on the door. But I'm hoping that I have zero swarms this year. So I've caught colonies early enough that I could split them. And for the ones that I was able to demoray, if that works according to plan, none of those colonies will swarm. So if I don't lose any this year, that'd be a first. But we'll see. We'll see.
I hope it works out. I think the dim ray is a great idea to do that. I think
Yeah.
here's another question for you, Brian. Kind of just when it comes to the dim ray, and I
Mhm.
talked to Lisa a little bit about this, and I'm might be a little bit unclear on what she told me. But if you do a dim array, why can't you just you could almost if you could figure out some sort of an upper entrance, why couldn't you just maybe break down a few of those cells, leave one or two, and just let them make a queen up top? You can use a
Something
double screen board for sure, but for a true dim array, you want
Mhm.
those bees to mix and go in there and make a lot of honey.
Yeah.
You figure out an upper entrance of some sort while the bees, like with the queen excluder, maybe using a cloak board type system just for the bottom board screen or whatever queen excluder. Just let them make a queen up there and let both queens lay. Let those bees
Mhm.
mix, and man, you might have a monster colony that's like 12 boxes high if you do that. Why couldn't you do that and just let them have a queen up top and a queen down below? Maybe later in the year, split that top queen off, establish a new colony once honey season's
Mhm.
over. And I mean, when people say dim ray split, to me, it's not a split, true split, unless you have a queen in both hives. I know you're splitting the brood box up, but to me, it's more the dim ray method.
Right.
But why couldn't you do that? To me, that would really you basically be running a double queen colony if you did that, and
Yeah.
that could be incredible. Just a thought.
I've I've read a ton of different articles, a ton of different like publications on the Demaray. I've seen where some people will, when they do shift that brood vertically, they will place another excluder, so they will run 2
Exactly.
excluders.
That's what I mean. One under the top box, one under the bottom box.
Yep.
When
Yep.
you split them off, you go ahead and put the queen excluder up there, and
Yeah.
then that because they'll make those cells. Greg, am I not missing?
Yep.
They'll make cells as long as there's
Oh,
space
they
in
will.
between them.
Yeah.
And so then but there needs to be some sort of an entrance where the bees can just
Yeah.
so she queen get out, get it mated. But I think to me, I mean, I understand the dim ray principle with one queen, but man, if you had 2 queens, good grief, at the
I
potential.
have had colonies, so those resource colonies that it's the 10 frame where you basically have 2 4-frame colonies in there. I have set those up where there's 2 strong colonies, so you've got 2 boxes, so it's 4 over 4, okay? And then I've stacked supers on those and had 2 and 3 and 4 supers stacked up because you've got 2 separate colonies, entrances
Exactly.
on opposite sides, and they are just banging out those honey supers.
But guys, Greg, you can't do that, can you? Got 2 queens in a colony, you want the bees all fight each other and kill each other? Isn't that what happens when you have 2 queens in a colony? Because they don't like each other.
If we could write a book, I guess we could, for all the things that the
Oh,
bees
yeah.
don't. The bees wouldn't read it if we wrote it anyways. So, you know, if we're supposed
Yeah.
to be experts, then we need the bees to do what we say. Because if we just say stuff and pretend to be experts and we say this is what the bees do, then people read the book and they realize that that's not what the bees do at all. Then it really doesn't make us experts at all. It just makes us somebody who's able to put their words into a book. I've got no axe to grind there. I'm not referring to any specific books that are full of nonsense.
That's it.
Yeah,
That would
just
be a book right there.
it's just you could make a book on all the things
Oh, yeah.
that like
The nonsense
it's
of beekeeping.
yeah. All the things
You know, but
that prove the bees don't read the books.
all right, so let me tell you this though, real quick. There are some things that will run across your path, and you just say, "Okay, what's going on here?" I don't know that we've got. Do we have video of it? I'm trying to think. We're in season 5 of the Learning Yard, so these videos that are coming out on our membership only part of our YouTube channel, we've been doing that part for 2 years, and so I'm trying to think back to who was out with us. I think it's been a couple years. You know, we've gone out. You guys have seen it. Excuse me. I'm getting old, guys, and my bedtime. It's like when it starts to get dark, my body says, I'm about to ready to crash out. I've seen two queens in a colony, you know, and one was a purple dot, and I knew specifically who she was and had a name, and she was a specific breeder. And I watched right alongside of her a pink dot queen. And there is something that happens where 2 queens coexist inside of a colony, and sometimes it's only for a short time, sometimes it's a little bit longer. Why is it they let 2 get along there? I don't know. One was a mother, one was a daughter, and in this situation, but a friend and customer of ours, Mr. James Rudder, stopped in to get a couple queens. I think it was yesterday, and he was talking about something interesting. Is he had a colony that had a queen who last year who she wasn't doing anything. She just wasn't doing that much. They made it through the wintertime, but this year she's totally done. She's not even laying eggs at all, and she's running around the colony. They had made another queen. They had superseded and made another queen, and she's still in there, and she has been the all entire season. They actually I think he said they overwintered with both the queens in there. And both of them lived. This colony is keeping 2 queens around, and there's no excluder. There's nothing like wild going on right now. But to me, it's like they're like, guys, leave grandma alone. Let her. She's on the front porch. Give her a blanket. Make sure she's got a sweet tea. Just let her rock. You know, make sure you just let her enjoy her. Let her enjoy herself. You know,
Her sweet tea.
She's not hurting anything, right? She's not trying to tell you what to do, how to raise you. She's just there enjoying everything. So there's something to be said about, you know, when I hear something like that, I always go to this, you know, like this over ambitious extremely charismatic bee evangelist beekeeper who is telling the whole entire world that there is this battle royale that happens, and as soon as there's a queen going on, as second she's out, she's going through and she's stinging every single one, and only one will survive, and that is the way it always will. Amen. But I'm like, but that's not really. There are no absolutes, and that's not exactly how it goes every single time. But anyways, have you guys seen two queens in a colony before?
I have one. I don't very rarely, but I have one a few years ago where it was kind of the same scenario. I had two queens in a colony, like literally a frame apart, or maybe even on the same frame. Just they were just in there working that thing, and I don't know how long they stayed in there. One of them I think was a lighter colored queen. One of them was a darker colored queen. And it wasn't a super strong colony though. It was kind of weird. It's like I'm not sure if either one of them was laying all that well, but they were both in there. I wonder if, and I've never really, I don't know. I wonder if when they supersede, I wonder if they keep the original queen around until the new one kind of gets established, and then they kill her off. I wonder how that goes down. I've never really observed that or seen or really thought too much. I thought a little bit about it, what happens when they supersede. But I do know that they will tell you. I've read statistics to where there is a certain percentage of beehives on average they just have two queens in them. It's pretty wild, but it's very, very rare that I've ever seen that. Most of the time, it's not that way. I will say that I did so I made another attempt this year at grafting using the cloak board system and set the thing up, and it just didn't have enough. It just didn't have enough bees, and I went ahead and grafted, and I ended up with only a couple of cells. And so I put those little easy peasy, easy beasy, easy peasy, those little, I think easy peasy bee cages over the cells, just left them on the bar in the hive what I've got is I've got a deep box, a couple supers on top. Then I've got my cloak board system sitting up there with the queen excluder in it. And then I've got the deep box on top where that was supposed to make the queens. Well, I made a couple cells, and I went in there a couple of weeks ago, and there were virgin queens in those little cages. I'm like, I don't want to. This was the day I was trying to set cells out and make splits out for the for these new cells from Tyler. I'm like, I don't want to fool with these queens. So what I did was, I hope I did this. I think I did this. I'm not sure what I did exactly, but I think I slid the little divider back in there, almost made it like a double screen. Or no, I actually put a double screen in there is what I did. I put a double screen bottom board on there, and I just released those two virgins in there, and I just put the lid on there and left. I think it's got 2 or 3 supers. It got the bottom box. I think it's got a queen excluder on it, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to check it out this weekend if I get out there. 2 to 3 supers on top of that, and then a double screen board and this deep box on top with the 2 virgin queens in there. So I'm curious to see if they go ahead and get mated and make at least make one of them comes back and makes a queen for that colony. And then my plan on this for an experiment is to just, once they start laying up there, take the double screen out and then just put a queen excluder in there and just let them run a double queen colony, one on the top, one on the bottom, and see what happens. That's kind of my goal. And I want to see, it's not truly a demarray because it didn't start off that way. But to me, it would be the same concept and same principle, and see if, first of all, they got to get mated and make sure that works. But then I'm just kind of curious to see. It's the only one I've done that with. I'm like, hey, why not just try it? I've got these 2 little virgin queens. I don't want to walk them into their colony. I didn't have a weak colony in that bee yard I would have just walked them in a weak colony if I had one, but I didn't. So I said, let's just see what happens here. So it'll be an interesting experiment. I haven't done any videos on this. I was kind of embarrassed that my take on the graphs was so bad. It just was horrible. And it's because I didn't have it set up properly. And then I found out I got a really good friend that's really good at grafting that has a Zach Heinzelman breeder queen and a Lapshaw queen. I'm like, why am I trying to do all this grafting of queens when I could just drive a few minutes down there to Black, Alabama and buy cells for cheap and, from a queen breeder that
I've seen
probably
what
want anyway.
I've seen what Zach's queens can do, and those are definitely some brood busters. Those make a lot of them. Latshaw is here in Ohio. I've never had any of his queens directly, but what a lot of folks don't know is there's even packaged bee companies that use those. So a lot of times you say, those packaged bee queens, those a lot of times are bred from very high dollar breeder queens.
For sure,
it's just an interesting nonsensical thing that people who don't know what they're talking about spew out constantly. But what's when as you were talking, what's interesting to think is you can have colonies that are extremely like over the top spicy. You can have them that are cool, calm, collected. You can have them do. It seems as though there are different types of pheromones within a queen.
Mm.
She's got. He tuned in at the right time. Look at that. The bat signal. The
We're
Zach
talking
signal.
about your queen, Zach. He didn't hear
Um,
the swarm. He didn't hear the swarming part. They'll have to go back and listen to that because that was one of his up at Yellowhammer. But it might be that they swarmed because they grew so fast, or it might be. I'm not sure. But anyway, well, I'll talk to you about that later, Zach. We can message back and forth. But yeah, we're talking about Tyler's
I
breeder
think if
queen
you,
that he has.
yeah, I'm
Go
getting a
ahead,
little
Greg.
bit.
I
I'm
didn't mean
getting a. It's no, no. I'm good. There's a. It might be me because we got overcast here and we're on the satellite internet. So, like you guys keep freezing and glitching. So if I'm talking on top of you, it's not intentional. Um, with the queen thing though, you've got the queen mandibular pheromone, and I think that there's different layers to that, and you've got the tarsal pads, the tarsal glands, where she's depositing pheromone too. I I don't have any science to back this up, but it almost seems as though there are different levels of queen mandibular and also the tarsal and different combinations of the two that almost direct and signal the colonies to do different things. One of those I don't wonder is defensiveness, and I also don't wonder if sometimes, like in these multiple queen scenarios, if they have a way of balancing out the pheromone as like the signal, the code for the colony that says, "Hey, we're okay, we're queen, right?" Or, "Hey, everything's fine, don't fight," or, "Hey, everything is not okay, fight," or, "Hey, we need to get moving towards making a queen." Like, I wonder what do we really understand about the signaling and the code that's in the pheromones that the queens are putting out and how the colony reacts to that messaging and then the functions that they have because of that. To me, it's extremely interesting to think about that there is maybe multi-layered code that happens through pheromone, through mandibular, through tarsal glands, and there may be combinations of both of those that are helping to orchestrate, organize the colony. So what if you could have two queens in a colony because they're figuring out how to balance out the pheromone picture for the colony and everything just keeps moving forward,
Yeah, it's just so. It's like my old mentor told me, and he was just an old country guy, and he would tell me. He told me more than once. He's like, because I thought I had everything figured out, and he would tell me, "Mites and beetles, Bruce. Mites and beetles. Control the mites and beetles." That was back when I decided I was going to be treatment free. The strongest will survive. He just shook his head and he kept selling me queens, and he just kept. He was very patient with me, but he just would always say, he's like, "Bruce, whenever you get these bees figured out, let me know." This is why I was a brand new beekeeper. Whenever you get it figured out, just let me know. And what he's saying is, we're never
You'll
going
never
to figure
figure
it
it
out,
out.
really. I mean, one thing that I've told people lately is, fairly a few times, is that the problem is now what I'm finding is that I'm keeping more bees alive. At least I'm not going to get cocky here at all because I could lose them all this year coming up. I could just, something could happen. I could just, it could happen. And so I'm not trying to say that. But what I'm saying is, right now I have more bees alive that are stronger on average than I've ever had before. And you got to have something to do with them. We talked about having the splits. We talked about having equipment. And so you got to either sell bees, you got to sell, you got to do split, sell nukes, sell bees, or get full sized hives to, or grow, your numbers. And so, but it's just like you can kind of get to the point where you kind of figure out some things. You kind of figure out what kind of works for you on average, but still, I don't know if we're ever going to really figure the bees out. That's why we
Mm.
talk about them all the time, is because we're all trying to kind of figure out what to do, trying to see what other people are doing.
Mhm.
And one of the things I love about beekeeping is the fact that there's so many different ways to do it. And that's one thing that frustrates me when people just say, just you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that, or don't do that, or don't
Mhm.
treat, or you have to treat, or whatever. I'm not going to go down. We're not going down that rabbit hole
Mhm.
tonight. I said it, but it's just like everyone has to figure it out. We need to all gather information from other sources and try things. And then when we do that, and if we'll figure out which things work that we prefer, that work for us. So it's kind of cool. I think
You
that's
know,
one reason we have these chats and people tune in, is to kind of figure out different techniques and ideas and learn things, and then we can try different things out.
mhm. With beekeeping being so regional, I mean, like Greg and I we're both in Ohio, but in that 2-hour difference, I know that what Greg is doing today, I might not be doing for 2 weeks. So with it being just so regional, and we always say context is key, I think like in beekeeping, each person has to find like their own little niche, you know, because like what Greg does, and it's like just with us inspecting colonies, everybody has their own little way of doing it. You set things up a certain way. We have our little quirks. I like my little bag that I set on my little white chair that's by the colony, and it's typically on the right side of it. I always approach the colonies a certain direction. Everybody is different, and that's what I think is the beauty of beekeeping, though, also, is how many there's 140 people here. I guarantee that not 2 people that's here, you nobody goes about their inspections the same way.
Yeah.
We're all in different areas of the country. We all do things differently. That's to me, that's one of the beauties of beekeeping, is there's just so many different styles, so many different methods, and it's like me this year. I found a way that I can not grow, but I can maintain my colonies, and I'm loving it. I wished I would have done this a couple years ago.
Yeah, you kind of get it learning kind of the method that works for you.
Yeah, and that's
Eric's
exactly it. Yep.
Eric says this. He says 2 months ago I knew everything there was to know about beekeeping. Then I actually got bees, and well,
That is awesome.
let's do a rapid fire on some questions and comments here, guys. We
Oh,
have a
that's
few
awesome.
starred comments, and we'll just run through these real quick. First of all, appreciate everyone being here tonight, and Brian, I appreciate the super chat.
Look at that. You see what I put in there?
Bruce is fancy. Dothan Shogun hashtag stream team. Okay, all right. Let's see what you did there. Greg, Nature's Image Farm. Friends don't let friends paint bee boxes. I'm impressed that you got the whole thing in there and didn't have any
No,
typos, Greg.
No typos, which is unusual.
I'm gonna
You guys know
say,
my
okay,
text.
here's a shameless plug for Greg. The boxes are awesome.
Oh, yeah.
They are definitely, in my opinion, worth the price. I love the regular Endura Hive boxes. I love the Propola boxes. They're incredible. But I really love these copper dipped ones. They're just elite, and they are just beautiful. And hopefully they'll last me the rest of my beekeeping career.
All them.
Nice.
Other
nice.
than the Ohio State one, but look at all them wax dipped boxes.
Those are much better looking than that Ohio State one, by the way, just to let you know.
Well, no, come on now.
Brian Lee, good friend down here. Now he's in Tallahassee. He moved from Tallahassee he moved from Birmingham to Tallahassee. I think he still has his place in Birmingham, but he's living in Tallahassee now. So which is closer to me than where he was before. Gas money for your honey harvest next couple of weeks. He says, Brian, why don't you come on up and help us, man? We'd
See?
appreciate you. Be more than welcome. I'd like to extend the invitation to you. Lisa knows what that means. Lisa keeps coming back though, so she must enjoy it. All right, here's a question, and this is a good question. This is what people are dealing with right now, and I'm dealing with this a little bit with my hives up there. Yellowhammer, I just put the honey supers on them, so we'll see how they do. But Mr. Jim says, "Hello, I need some advice on getting my bees to draw out honey supers. I use mediums over a double deep, but a lot of my colonies didn't draw comb in the mediums. Any suggestions?" All right, Brian, let's start with you. What do you do? What would you do in that situation? How do you get your bees to draw out? Just say if they're foundation, total foundation, because I know drawn comb is a whole different animal. If you got it, it's great. But if you don't, which is where I'm learning this again up there at Yellowhammer. I'm just starting over. I just put honey supers with blank foundation in there.
Mm-hmm.
How would you answer this question?
So I tell you, I've learned in the last few years, and I won't drop the names of any of the companies. Just I respect everybody's business, but uh, the equipment that you purchase plays a huge role in that question right there. I have had equipment sent to me where people say, "Hey, would you do a video, do this and that, whatever?" And every single one of those across the board, I end up with wonky comb. I end up with issues with the frames. I just end up with problems. Um, when you go cheap as far as frames, you end up having to supposedly on these heavy waxed frames, you end up having to spend time putting your own wax on them. So I have learned that when you go cheap, you're going to end up having problems.
Yeah.
If you're just looking to draw out frames, uh, I mean, you really don't need an excluder, for part of that. Also, depending on the flow, feed them. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Thought, Greg,
yeah,
what are your thoughts? What do you tell your mentees or your newbies when they're trying to draw out that first super of honey and they want to get
Yeah.
honey? What do you tell them?
Yeah, most of our folks here are getting their equipment here as well, so I know they're starting off with a good quality foundation that's at least double waxed, which is huge. From there, sometimes bees don't want to go up past double deeps, no matter what you try to do, and the only way that you're going to get them up sometimes is with feed. For us, that's where the bucket feeders are absolutely spot on because you can put a bucket feeder right on top above that super. And if they don't need the feed, they won't take it. But if they don't need the feed and won't take it, and they're not drawing the supers out, they may not ever want to go up there. They may be satisfied with double deeps. But what I have found is giving them that extra feed. If we put 1 gallon of feed on there, that'll help them get started. That'll get that super going as far as it's drawn, but it's not enough feed to where they're going to draw the foundation out and then store it, unless you're getting into like the 13th hour of fall and you're trying to get them to do this, then you could have a scenario where they're going to draw out one of the frames just to store the food on. But feed is super important. And folks are usually the big concern is, well, I don't want to put feed on if I'm going to use it as a honey super. And I get that. I understand that. But sometimes they don't have enough carbohydrates on the incoming to get their wax glands to continue to secrete enough to even draw out that comb. So you may have a lost opportunity for gathering for them if we don't help give them a little bit of feed. So feed, specifically a bucket feeder on top, is probably the best way because it stimulates more of a trickle flow than it does gorge feeding through a frame feeder. That's what I like to do. And then of course, no excluder. Let those bees come up in there and start to do that work. And even if she lays a little bit up there, I'm not even worried about it. Shake them right back down and then put the excluder on, let everything hatch out and let them back fill up through there. What about you,
Yeah,
Bruce?
that's my technique as well. First of all,
Yeah.
I kind of went against this a little bit up at Yellowhammer this past weekend because some of the really strong ones, I went ahead and put 2 supers on a foundation, and some of them I didn't put any on there. But really, you don't want to do that if you're going to be able to get out there sooner. Probably one super is enough. I wanted to make sure they had enough room and space. The tricky thing is with new beekeepers and new beehives in the first year, it's just drawing out that foundation is the biggest challenge, I think. And they'll do it in a really strong flow. If you feed them, they'll do it. But I agree with both you guys. I say just put the super on there with the foundation, no excluder, let them draw it out. I don't typically do that unless there's a pretty strong flow going on. I like there to be a flow. Let them get up in there, and we'll see what happens with those bees up at Yellowhammer. It's a good experiment for me. I'm not doing a lot of videos up there because I think it's kind of a private property. I'm not sure if they really want me to, but I can talk about it a little bit, I think, here on the show. But there was an interesting idea though here from RTX honeybees. I've never thought of this, but it's kind of an interesting way to do it if you're able to. He says early on he puts a 3-inch shim under the medium. He pulls up 2 deep frames with brood and drops 2 mediums in the deep box, both checkerboarded. He's come back in 2 weeks and put them back the way they were. What that does, it makes a lot of sense, is it just stimulates them to draw it out almost like you're adding a second deep on there and pulling the frames up. and then they draw them out, and then you can just put everything back the way it was, and probably even put your queen excluder in there, and you got your stuff drawn out, and the bees are going to go to work putting honey in there. So that's not a bad idea. That's an interesting idea, and I kind of like it. That's one reason I love what we do here, because we get these wonderful ideas and things we can do.
Oh yeah.
Bruce, I can tell you
Um,
how I'm going to fix this problem from the future is the problem with medium supers over double deeps. How do you fix that? You get rid of the medium supers. I know that's a
yeah,
lot of extra. It's heavy and but I'm starting to really think about going to all deeps on everything because this wouldn't for this specific
not a
reason.
problem.
It's
Yeah.
it's a non-issue. It's a zero issue.
Yeah, that is true. And if you're in a situation to where the deeps are too heavy, like I'm 58 years old, I could maybe handle it now, but it's physically, a deep full of honey is 70, 80 pounds or whatever.
Yeah,
It's a lot. It's super heavy. And so, you do move two or three of them, it's not a big deal, but you move 150 of them and you're going to pay for it the next day, especially as you get a little bit older. So two ways to fix that. I think if you want to run all the same size box, number one, you can use 8 frame boxes. They're not as heavy, right? That's one thing a lot of people might do. Number two, you could run all mediums, and then then it's the same
right.
situation. You have all, and I know a lot of people, Keith Spillman does that. Glade Sessions does that. A lot of people run pretty much all mediums. And then you do have more boxes in the long run because they're not as big as the deep boxes, but they aren't near as heavy or as strenuous to do it. But yeah, if you run all same size equipment, that eliminates a lot of problems because everything's kind of interchangeable. Great stuff and a great idea. RTX, I like that. That was a great plan and great idea. Uh, okay. Did you put that there, Brian?
Yeah,
Simple.
yeah, I did. Yeah.
All right. Feeding a bucket above a simple comb supernursery spring is one of our favorite techniques for ensuring they build out the comb in time for the flow.
There you go.
So
Perfect.
my question about that is, so they don't, I mean, you mentioned this a little bit, I think one of you guys, I think it was you, Greg, they don't start storing that sugar, that syrup when they draw it out, they don't start storing it in there. You
No,
don't see them doing
what I've
that.
noticed is they in the spring, no, the summer, no, late fall, yes. Late fall,
Okay.
um, they go into this mode, especially if you're feeding in late in the fall and trying to build weight, all they're trying to do is build weight too. But in the spring of the year and in the summer, they're looking more towards they're
Expanding the
forecasting a
house.
season. Yeah. Like they have their I don't
Okay.
know, it's just one of the amazing things that they're in tune with. So for the simple comb, that's probably one of the best ways. I'll have to try that. We have a flow right now, but which reminds me, Mick gave me some cassettes, more cassettes to try out. So yeah.
Okay. Good
Anyways,
deal. I've got some 21st Bee, just comb honey frames I'm going to try for Infinity
Wow.
Frames. And I may also try. I've
We
also got some simple comb. I may try that again this year. I may try and do both. What happens here is when the flow hits, it's just hard to do anything different than you know what I traditionally do. And I did get some simple comb last year. It was beautiful and it sold. Like I sold it all to Appleton Farms, and they said that it's interesting. They said that when the older people came in, they saw the price, they wouldn't want to touch it. But when younger people came in, they just didn't even bat an eye. They bought it for whatever the
Huh.
price was. They didn't even think twice about it. So kind of interesting thing.
Yeah, interesting.
Another question here, kind of went through these. This is probably more directed at me than you guys. I'm not sure. Greg, you have all your bees on your property, right? Brian, you do too.
no,
So
Mm.
you do? Yeah. So anyway, do you use any kind of contract or release of liability for bee yards? That would probably be a good thing. This is from Anderson Homestead. That would probably be a good thing to do. I have bee yards let's see. I've got them on family land. Two of them are on family land. Two of the bee yards, three of them are, yeah, two on family land. Two of them, two of them are also on, or three of them are on private property that's not visible. Like nobody would ever know they're there, really, unless you know they're there, kind of a thing. The only ones that are at all visible to the public that would be an issue would be Appleton Farms, and that is I mean, there are like 50 plus hives out there, so it would probably be good to have some sort of a thing. But they actually are really good. They're real defensive. They watch those hives, the people that own that place carefully. They love having them there because they pollinate all their crops and the farming stuff they do. and they don't really let anybody get down there close to them, but they are visible, so it could be an issue. And that's something I do not have never done, but it would probably be wise to do something like that. I should probably at least put a sign out there, like "Don't pass this sign." Take your risk in your own hands or whatever. But it has worked out okay so far. One one time, they Tommy out there at App called me and he said, "Do you have someone come and look at your bees today?" Because the bee inspector will come by sometimes and look at them. And I said, "No, not that I know of." But someone had kind of gotten lost. They were looking for a place to pick berries or something, I think, or whatever, and they had made a wrong turn. And they were down there wandering around by my bees, driving in their car, and so they were like, probably needed to not do that. So I think they ran down there and kind of directed them in the right direction. And fortunately, they didn't get stung or anything. But yeah, there's a lot of bees down there flying around right now. It's like it's wild how many bees there are. So, but no, I don't do that. It would probably be wise to do that, but I have not done that in the past. And so far, it hasn't bit me, but it would probably be wise to do that. I'm not sure how that would need to be drawn up, but it would be, especially if they're on property where there's people around. Like I say, most of them are not even visible.
Hmm.
Nobody even knows they're there except for the landowner and me. Um, this is a question for you guys. When in Ohio should you pull the swarm traps? Does that mean put them up or take them down? Or what does that mean?
Right now,
When you say pull, what does that mean? Put them up or
I think he's talking about putting them out. Yeah.
put them out? Okay. Yeah, here we're
Yeah.
still in the swarm season. We still having a few swarms, but we're going to be winding down a little bit pretty soon. But yeah, I
Mhm.
don't know how it is up there.
I
Man, it's so
I
much fun when
even
you catch a
saw
swarm, though.
I even saw Fred Dunn posted his first swarm. So if they're starting to hit Northwest Pennsylvania, uh, it's going to pick up here fairly soon. So
Question from Bracken, Barker's Bees, and this is a good question too, especially for people trying to expand fast. He says, "What is the smallest split you will make in a fine frame nuke? One brood, one food, two brood. I want to know your opinion." Um, Greg, what do you think, man?
The smallest split. Well, I guess you have to define split. Literally, the smallest is a one queen cell and a handful of bees. Is all it takes. If you're just trying to get a queen out and then have something to do with, you can get by with that here. Once you get past this cold weather, and we're into the upper 50s at the coldest, you're fine. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, Mr. Bracken, what's the split for? Are you splitting just to have some backup queens? Are these little things so you could sell queens? Are these things for nukes that are supposed to grow and have some kind of a harvest this year? If so, then your answer it could be your smallest split could be a 10 frame single, depending on what your goal is with it. If it's just to have a queen hatch and start to lay and you have a backup queen in something and doesn't cost you a bunch of resources, then literally you could pull one frame that has one queen cell, the adhering bees on it, pop that rascal in a nuke, and you're golden. That is plenty of resources to host one queen, no problem at all. So if it's just for a queen, then a handful of bees and a queen cell will do it. The safer bet is probably just a frame that the queen cell is on and those adhering bees. And if you're going to make a split like a 5-frame nuke that you're going to sell for a customer, the easiest thing is 2 food, 2 brood, and a blank frame for them to draw out on. And then if it's something you're going to plug into a big 10-frame single, then just a single box split is a solid choice.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, any thoughts on that?
I'm very conservative when I will typically split a colony, and the only reason why is yes, I'm in singles now, so I will typically pull out 2 frames of brood, and then make sure they have adequate food on them, and that's it. I know you can do those singles. There's so many different ways that you can do it, but I'm always very conservative with my splits. So I usually do two frames of brood, and then everything else just to set it up.
Yeah, I like to do now. Years ago, when Barnyard Bees was a really big channel, and I guess probably still is. I don't know. I haven't watched in a while, but he made a video on 2-frame nuke boxes. And so I went out and made a bunch of those. And I've actually had pretty good success getting queens mated. Just put a frame in there with brood and a drop a queen cell or in there, and then an empty blank frame, and put like a mason jar feeder on top with a hole in the top, and just let them rock and roll. And the problem with those 2-frame nukes is there just isn't a lot of, with one frame, a deep frame in a skinny box like that, they kind of have a hard time, I think, sometimes regulating temperature, maybe regulating things a little bit. But I've had good success with it. The problem with them too is if you put a frame of brood in there, when they emerge, it's packed out with bees. And then if that queen starts laying and gets it, before you know it, that thing is overrun with bees. Either they die out or they just, you got to get them in a 5-frame box as soon as that queen gets mated, pretty much. And so they're a little bit tricky, but what I like, ideally, what we did, Greg, I did that. I repeated that. I've repeated it twice now, where we put 1 to 2 frames of brood, really 2 frames of brood, a frame of food, and then an empty frame, and then a feeder in pro nukes. You got 4 frames plus a pro nuke, plus a feeder and a pro nuke, a gallon size feeder. And that has been a really nice size, man. Even though I've even done some splits in the regular 5-frame wooden nuke boxes with 3 frames, like a frame of brood, a frame of food, and an empty frame in there, or a frame and a half of brood, and then a frame of food, and 3 frames and a feeder. And those have worked extremely well too. So if you don't have many frames, though, you got to make sure if you put 2 frames of brood in there, you got to get that feeder out pretty quick and put 2 more frames in there. But you can go, like you say, 1 frame of brood, 2 frames of food, and just there's so many ways to do it. But you can get by with 1 frame. It really depends too, I think, on, like you said, Greg, if you're trying to sell them, you want them to build up fairly quickly and get strong fairly quickly. Make sure all the frames are getting started to get drawn out and everything. But if you're just trying to make numbers and you don't mind if they really grow up and get super strong this year, you can start off. If you're trying to increase, you can break them down pretty darn hard. And if you do that, you're not using as many resources. So the ones that don't take or don't work, it's not as much of a loss as if you put a lot of resources in them too. But I know Bracken uses little mini mating nukes. So I think he probably understands the principle, just a handful of bees. It blows me away how like a cup of bees can get a queen mated. That just blows me away. Like a cup or 2 of bees. It just is amazing to me how
crazy
those little mating nukes are like this big, tiny little things, and it just amazes me how that's all it takes to get queens mated. But they figure it out, man. They build out that nice little tiny colony, but you got to be plucking the queens out of there pretty quick, or else they'll be obviously
the real
overrun.
challenge. It's the challenge, and also giving her a long enough laying time in the mini styrofoam nukes. It's hard. It's hard to get a queen to lay.
Your mating nukes, are they 3-frame mediums, or what are they?
No, we've got my most favorite is actually what I learned from Chris Warner, which is a 10-frame deep divided in 3. So the box can always get used. I never understood the 2-frame stuff, and I actually kind of thought it was a little ridiculous that I was gonna. Why would you build these little goofy boxes and lids that you can't use for anything else? To me, it just made 0 sense when I can take 2 frames of bees and put them into a 5-frame nuke box. You have to fill the box out, So for me, it was like, well, I'd rather just use a 5-frame wooden box or any other box if I was going to do it in the same format. But I've used a lot of half mating nukes size frames, which are a lot bigger than just if you look at the size of, and I guess my hands are not really doing any kind of a justice, but if you look at like your phone, those frames, those little mini styro frames
they're
are
tiny.
only this width, and they're only just a little bit longer than that. So they're only that's weird. Picture of you. There's just not, and when there's only 3 of those, maybe 4 in those things, there's not a lot of time for a queen to get established or for you to really understand her laying pattern. So if you're raising them in those to sell, to me, I'm just thinking, I want to buy, if I was going to buy queens, I would hope that the queen would be closer to 21 days old, because there's a lot that happens in that 15, 16, 17 day stuff where she eventually does fail. Anyways, that's a whole different story. But I like the half mating nukes, and I like, gosh, we've raised thousands and thousands and thousands of queens just using 5-frame medium boxes. You know,
Okay, yeah, okay,
there's a
5
lot of
frame
different
medium
ways to
box.
do it, but we've got
I
one
had a
odd configuration, and it works, but it takes a lot of extra
it
effort to charge up the little half
yeah.
nukes.
The 2 framers are just tricky, and, yeah, I think the reason they use them is because you can just use standard frames in there, but,
Mhm.
yeah, other than that, I don't see any real I think what I've kinda fall into is I just like to be able to have them in on deep frames, be able to expand them and just drop the queen into bigger boxes. I don't do I don't do a lot of plucking queens out and put them in new hives. Pretty much what I do
Right.
is I just take the if I drop a nuke in if I need to strengthen a hive and put a new queen in there, I just drop a whole nuke into that colony, just drop
Right.
them in there,
Exactly.
with the frames and everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to the point to where I have actually pulled out mated queens, put them in a cage with candy, and introduced them. I have never. I That's one thing I haven't really done. Usually when I do
There's
that,
no
I
really
get
need
queens
for
from
you.
somebody
Yeah.
else. No, but
Yeah, there's
I
not
that's
any
kind of
need
what
for
I've
that.
done. So I just kind of like to have standard frames. Did have a frame one time, and it was kind of a really. I thought it was a pretty good configuration. It was a 3 frame medium, and that's wider. There's more width to it. I think they can control temperature better, and that's how he had his queen rearing mating nuke set up. But so many things you can do. But just kind of curious on that. Last question here we have Dennis Sherrill. I think he's from right here in Alabama. He asked, "Do any of you do like Bob Benny and take bees from the small hives and give to the big hive for the honey flow?" I guess does he just drop nukes in big hives in big production colonies to give him more population? Is that what he's talking about? Do you think, or I'm not sure. I haven't seen a video where he did that, but do you guys
The
know what he's
reverse
talking about?
Robin Hood. Yeah, I just call it the reverse. There's sometimes where it's the Robin Hood. There are sometimes where the reverse Robin Hood, and it depends. I think when I hear that question, Mr. Dennis, what I think about is you creep up to this apex, and at the top of my screen, if where my finger's at's the honey flow, you're creeping these colonies up to where you're trying to gauge their growth so that they are their brood and everything is really just peaking past that. So you've got full field force, full brood size just after the flow, not right before it. Because if they start to peak right before the flow, they're in the trees. But sometimes you have colonies they're about here on a flow and you need them to be here. And then you've got some
Mm,
colonies that are here and they're never going to get to that flow height. So if the top of my screen is like where the flow happens, and we want to be just under that with our overall population so they don't swarm, you want to have colonies that are getting right up to that point. So you have some that are going to be too small that no matter what you do, they're not going to hit that point. And then you have ones that are just a little bit under and ones that are here. So sometimes by robbing the brood, especially the cat brood, 3 weeks ahead of a flow, getting that into a colony to brood, get their size build up, and so that the brood is mature enough to gather. Now this colony it's gonna hit in a big way. This one, yeah, you've took some brood out of it, but they're gonna keep cruising the rest of the year. They'll still fill out and they'll still overwinter. So you can do
okay.
that. That's probably what he means.
So just dropping frames of bees or dropping into the hive, not an entire hive. I see what he's saying. I just dropping bees in there, which yeah, that's another thing about the books. You can just take frames, believe it or not, take frames of brood and nurse bees and drop them in together with each other, and they just strengthen the colony. They do just fine. You don't have to worry about that. So
Well, then there's no reason why you could not. I mean, at the end of the day, if you think about this, Bruce, and I've done it where it's like I don't even care. I don't. The result will find itself because in that situation, and I don't see why it does work. I've done it, but referring to this question here, if you had a single on a four-way pallet, just a single box here, and let's say it
mhm,
was 5 or 6 frames, and you got something that's in double deeps and they're not quite filling out that double deep, there's no reason in the world you couldn't just take that box right off the four-way pallet, stick it on top, have them in
mhm,
3 boxes, and not have any home for them to go back to. What they'll do is they'll all now fill out the right spaces in those 3 boxes. Now they've got room to grow into. You can kind of populate the boxes, let the queens figure it out and just keep cruising. You could totally
yeah.
there's no reason why you couldn't do it if you were in a position where you had queens. You can make queens. You're not worried about the loss.
I think now I might be wrong on this, but didn't Randy Oliver say that's what he does before honey season? Sometimes he just will slap hives on top of each other, and that just creates these monster colonies that make honey. Somebody talked about that. I think they just let the queens figure it out. And they come back later, and I guess they requeen them or whatever. But the key to honey production is population of bees, population of foragers. If you have just say you have a hive, and I'm gonna use the single, double, and triple deep scenario, and it's not exactly accurate, but just for a purpose of this thing, if you got a single deep that's a mediocre hive, and if you have two single deeps that are just average hives, and you they bring all their honey in and everything, and they just really they're fairly productive. You get a super, maybe say a super off of each of those. If you have a double deep that's full of bees, just one double deep that's full of bees versus a single deep that's full of bees, but they're both kind of the same. What am I trying to say? Maybe same bees per frame. The double deep is going to bring in, just because of sheer population, it's going to bring in more honey than two singles would. Does that make sense? Now, the way Brian's doing it with the single deep management, he's keeping those bees down below. He's getting probably the same number of bees as you might get in a double deep, but they're all kind of, the brood is all down in that bottom box. Unless he's doing the demarray, that's a different thing. But so you're still getting that huge population, which is kind of similar. But if you're just letting them do their thing, it's like the sum is greater than the what is it? The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. The field force can bring in way more. It's way more efficient if you have a huge field force. And that's super critical and important to recognize. So it's not always going to be more honey if you have more hives. You'd be better off to have fewer hives that are super strong and healthy
more mature
than to have a bunch of small, just average, mediocre hives. So splitting doesn't always create more honey. The health of the colonies. So when I say I've got 150 colonies, what I'm really doing for the honey flow is I'm saying I've got X number of production colonies. That's different. Now, my regular colonies that I don't consider really be production colonies might make a box of honey, but my production colonies are the big ones that are big double deeps that I have 3 or 4 super stacked on those are my honey producers. Those are the ones I'm really trying to make sure they're built up strong and in a really good position. There's a lot of colonies in my bee yards that are not at that level, and that's okay. They'll be resource hives, or they may get combined with something else, or they may be ready for growing up for next year. I don't know, but that's kind of what I do. So anyway,
I
overall
talk about
population is important.
in the video that I have coming out on Friday when I started those splits, the demarays. I had one colony that just was not quite there. I mean, could I have done it? Yeah, but in the whole grand scheme of things, when I looked at it, I'm like, should I force their hand? They weren't quite built out and developed to the point like some of the others. And could I have forced it? Yes. Would it have benefited them? No. So, and I do talk about that a little bit. Just it's sometimes it does no good to force the hand. Let them develop. Now what I probably will end up doing for colonies like that are just a hair behind, I've got 2 colonies now that are working in that defender. So each week, think of how many brood frames I can use that thing as a resource.
There you go.
I can walk over there, and if I have a colony that is lagging behind a hair, I can easily go up to that thing and pull out 4 frames of brood and walk them down to another colony and say, well, here you go.
Yeah.
You're going to get a boost. I'll be like Oprah walking around my apiary. You get a little boost. You get a little boost. You see that?
It's just, you can combine hives, you can add frames of bees, you can do whatever, but the key is big population.
Yeah.
So go ahead and kind of start to wrap it up here. I appreciate the super chat from Papa G's Bees, $20. Thank you so much.
2 hours?
Yes, we need to. We've been on here a while. We got Grammy. Thank you so much, Lisa, for the $10 super chat, $9.99. We really appreciate you and all the support that you give us here, and we love all the folks in here, and we appreciate you being here.
G2.
A thought came to my mind before we wrap this up of swarms, and one thing you can do if you have a swarm 40 feet up in a tree, or even wherever it is, you can put out Well, yeah, you can do that. I've never done that, but I have seen that happen. But I have actually had, one year I remember a few years ago, I think I did a video, it's probably been 5 or 6 years ago, but I was down in Slocum working, and I'm going through these colonies, and I'm thinking, man, this hive's going to swarm. So I think I ran back up to the farm and got a swarm trap, tapped a nail in the tree. Maybe I already had a nail in the tree about 10 yards away from the beehives. And I was working those colonies. I'm like, well, I'll just put a swarm trap up here in case the hives swarm. And I'll be darned if just a few minutes later, I'm out there. It's on the video, actually. I think I have it on the video. A dang swarm went right over my head and went right in that swarm trap out of the colony I think that I thought was going to swarm. So one thing you can do, and I've had some success doing this, if you see a swarm up in a tree, you can just set up a swarm trap out there. Throw you some. I use Swarm Commander. You can just leave some lemongrass oil. However you want to do your swarm trap. I'll just stick a nuke box out there, or a deep, maybe work a little better. Just stick it on a hive stand. Set it up there in your apiary. Set it on a log. Set it on a stump. Just see what happens. And I have caught quite a few swarms doing that. Even if you don't know they're going to swarm or see a swarm up in the tree, it doesn't hurt to keep a little swarm trap out there by your apiary, and you might be surprised. Like Greg said, it might be somebody else's bees or a feral bee hive that moves in, or maybe some of yours. But it's an insurance policy if you want to. It works. I mean, I used to have swarm traps around all my apiaries. I don't really do that anymore. Sometimes I'll just throw up, if I got an empty slot, I'll spray some Swarm Commander and put some comb in it. If I got small nasty comb, put it in a box and do it. Many times I've caught swarms that way. So that's just a little trick. Or if you see a swarm up in a tree, why not set it up? You never know. They may just go in there. In my backyard back here when I had bees, I used to do that all the time. I'd see a swarm up in the tree, and I didn't want them to go in my neighbor's house. So I'd set me up a little swarm trap, and I caught them. Lots of times I actually caught those darn swarms when they would be hanging up in that tree. But anyway, we have been on here for 2 hours. Our goal is around an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half, and we usually go over what we usually don't quite make 2 hours. So we have been on here a long time. Oh, I wanted to also, before we get off here, I appreciate you guys from Simple Comb. I guess it's probably Mick, maybe, or Madison. Appreciate you guys checking in tonight for the 1999 Super Chat. We really appreciate you guys and what you're doing. And beautiful product. It's just the challenge is getting to draw it out. And when it works, I'm still working on that, but when it works, it is just absolutely beautiful. It's a great product. So anyway, appreciate you guys coming on and appreciate the Super Chat and your participation tonight and the suggestions on how to get him to draw it out earlier in the chat tonight. But quickly around the horn, Brian, go ahead and I'll follow you, and then we'll let Greg close us out tonight. What you got coming in the next few days? You've already talked about it a little bit, Brian, but what do you got coming up? Next week or so.
Before next week's stream, probably absolutely nothing in the bees other than cleaning in the honey house. That's all. So the weather is just not going to cooperate. I have everything set up right now so that they could ride out this little cold stretch, and it's just going to be getting things ready. So I do need to wax some frames, and since our simple comb friends are in here, I have the super with all of those frames and the cassettes. Everything is all set up. They're going to get waxed also. So
Awesome.
I'm going to go through, get some things set up ready. I want to get additional supers, just everything all set and ready. That way, if I do get like into the thick of things, that I'm set up and I'm not having to like chase my tail and get equipment, things like that. So next week, it's just going to be mainly just equipment for me.
Awesome. With Simple Comb, yeah, it's time. If the honey flow is coming on, it's about time to get that in your hives. And the new Simple Comb cassettes are much easier to put in the frames. They changed them out last year. The first year there were some challenges, but they retooled them, and so now they'll fit in any medium frame. They work really well. And so I do have a code Bruce10 on my. If you go into simplecomb.com and put Bruce10, you get a little discount on that. So just a thought. I don't know, Brian, if you have that too, but I just thought I'd throw that out there.
I haven't used them yet.
So, but yeah, so here I'm just, we're going to harvest the 8th and 9th, which is the day or two before Mother's Day, and it'll be our spring harvest. We'll see what we end up with next few days. I'm going to try to get a video out. I actually, at the location where Yellowhammer, where the main homestead place there, where the 4 hives are, there is an old abandoned hive there that they haven't used. It hasn't been broken into in, when I got in there, years. I mean, I couldn't get some of the frames out. They were glued in so bad without breaking them. And so I shot some video footage that I may try to throw together a video on that. It was interesting to see. Those bees have been in there for I don't know how long, but they're just apparently tough bees, and they weren't real happy with me when I started breaking in there trying to break those frames apart. But anyway, I may try to do that. Maybe not. I'll see how the video turned out. I did shoot some footage on it. It took me probably, I mean, I got into the bottom box and I literally could not get the frames out. They were glued so hard. One of them just broke apart when I tried to pull it out. It was just like I've seen some frames tough to get out before, but I've never seen anything glued in there like that with all the propolis in that hive. It was amazing. So I may try to do that. But as far as bee work, I need to try to get in them, check and kind of get an idea on the number of supers we may have the following week. But if we got some rain coming in, which we really need, if I don't get in the colonies, it's not a tragedy. I mean, they're pretty much set up how they're going to be, and so I may get a little bee work done this weekend. I may not, but I've been having a good time getting everything set up, getting the honey, the new bottling tank ready to go, and it's just been a blast. This bee season so far has been extremely busy, but it's been a lot of fun, and I've really enjoyed it. For some reason, I was real burnt out last fall, and I caught a second wind, probably about conference time. And I think Greg, that weekend you came down, that was when I really just kind of just this season took off for me. I've really been working hard, been enjoying it. It's just been a lot of fun. So that's what we got going on. We're in the middle of it. It's real busy right now. The bees are packing the honey, or they have been, and hopefully they'll continue to do so and stay healthy. And it's always an adventure. So with that, Greg, I'll turn it over to you. Bring it on home for us.
Awesome. Well, as Bruce and Brian have said, we really appreciate everyone taking some time and spending with us here. It's great to have got the whole gang here together. If I think the rest of the season, you'll see a lot more of the three of us together. There will be some nights, I'm sure, where one of us will be thick into doing something with the bees, and maybe we can't get on here. But it's always good to get on here and talk about bees. There's always something to talk about because we're always doing things maybe a little bit different, trying something new, or just sharing where we're kind of at in life. So next week we'll be on whose channel, fellas?
Mr. Burns.
Okay, so we'll be on the Nature's Image channel next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So there'll be a lot going on this week to talk about then. Maybe next week we'll get into maybe a little bit some more of the nuts and the bolts of the overwintered splits, or the overwintered nukes, the spring splits, queen strategies, queen rearing strategies. There's a lot going on to it, and we're just in that timeline of the year where we really got to buckle down, make some things happen. But for here on the farm, that's the main focus, is getting our overwintered nukes cut out, getting the spring nukes, start to get those set up and ready to go. We may have some extra availability with some overwintered nukes, but for right now, we've got those sold out until we get everyone kind of satisfied there. But we do have some spring nukes available. If you're looking for spring nukes, that's what we're going to be doing and busy here in the next couple weeks, getting everything lined out, getting those queens settled in, getting them laying nicely. So when you pick up those nukes, there's a beautiful, beautiful colony of bees to take home to you. That's the big focus right now. And of course, we were nonstop wax dipping equipment. So if you're looking for the very best in wax dipped equipment, no paint, no rot, no hassle, Endure hives built to endure, as Bruce and Brian and so many folks in these comments tonight can tell you themselves. There's just friends don't let friends paint bee boxes. Let's just be done with that. If you're going to invest in equipment, invest in the best that's going to last a long time. There is a lot of wax dip knockoffs on the market. So you can trust Bruce and Brian, everyone else here, and then in the comments. Our Endure Hive line of equipment is truly unique. It is top notch. It is the best on the market. And there are a lot of folks that will give you that testimony as well. So that's what we're going to be busy the next week kind of doing. We are really behind on video work. It's just we can't do it all equally throughout the year. But I'm actually thinking about going out there and just taking a quick, no frills, no nothing video to show everybody, hands down, the best swarm trap, what it looks like, and all the special magical things that you have to do right to make it work. Maybe I'll take a little video and show you guys that, kick that thing out there. you know. In the meantime, if you're looking for more hands-on learning opportunities, you want to see go through colonies starting from the very beginning, starting with package bees, I would encourage you to go to our YouTube channel, sign up to be a member. A member is like $5 a month, and you'll be able to watch the learning yard videos at your own pace. But you can follow along from package installation all the way throughout the year, how to install them, what to look out for, when to add boxes, checking for pests, adding supers, spinning honey, you name it. It's all going to be right there in the Learning Yard membership video. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. We'll see you over there as well. And I just want to say this too. People say this a lot of times, and I've heard people say this over and over and over again. And so the fact that I'm going to say it isn't some great, big, brand new, awesome idea that I just made up, but it's something that I never took the time to really appreciate. Um, you've got to find ways to take care of yourself, spiritually, number one, but physically. You've got to find ways to take care of your mind and your body, because if you don't, they will humble you in a way where you have no choice. And right now, I feel like I'm coming out of a long stint of just absolute brain squashedness, and it's really taken a toll. And I'm slowly getting back up to speed. But when you work yourself so hard, and you go over and over and over and over and over again, you got to do the things to take care of yourself. And at the end of the day, you've got to ask yourself, why are you doing all these things? Why are we doing these things? And what I want to leave you is this: what would it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his own soul? Something to think about this next week. Looking forward to seeing you next Wednesday, 8 p.m. on the Nature's Image Farm YouTube channel. And until then, we want to remind you to be the lighthouse and be who God wants you to be in this world. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.